Business seminar series. I apologize for the technical issues. GoToMeeting was having a system outage, and they have just gotten it corrected, so we are finally up and online. So that aside, and running 5 minutes late, wanted to welcome everybody again to our Expertise in Business webinar series. I'm Eric Hobbs, CEO of Technology Associates, and I'll be acting as the moderator for the webinar. If you have any questions for Elyse during the webinar, just type them into your GoToWebinar panel, and I'll make sure to get them to Elyse. About 15 minutes or so set aside at the end to really take a deeper dive into some other questions. But if you have them in the meantime, throw them up there, and I'll kind of filter through them. So we are really excited to have Elyse Archer with us here today. She's a senior internet marketing consultant at Reach Local. She's been helping local businesses and national businesses generate new clients online for over 7 years. So as a small business owner, I know from experience how daunting coming up with good content for social media can be, which is exactly why we thought bringing somebody like Elyse in would be a great addition to our series. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Elyse.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. I'm just so excited to talk with you and talk with the audience today. And so for everybody who's on the webinar today, I'm guessing you're here because you want some help with your social media campaign. So we can't all be Ferrari dealers or gyms, right, where there's countless amounts of great content to share with our audience. And frankly, I kind of think those businesses have it pretty much made in the social media world. But for the rest of us who may be in B2B industries or working in an industry that's not quite as shiny and sparkly, we have to really think outside of the box for unique and engaging ways to get our audience interested in what we have to say via social media. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some ideas that you can start implementing now that will help take your social media campaigns from what may be kind of lackluster to really awesome. And so in particular, we're going to be covering 5 different things. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define social media in the context of what it means for businesses today. Next, we're going to look at some social media fails and talk about what not to do with your strategy, just to lay the ground rules. Third, we're going to take a look at the few companies that you might otherwise think would be really boring, but who are doing incredible things online with their social media campaigns. Fourth, we're going to talk about the most important thing that you need to do right now in order to start developing your content marketing and social media strategy. And then fifth, I'm going to show you 3 social media makeovers that I did on industries that I think could potentially fall into the trap of having a dull social media campaign that I think are pretty cool. And then at the end, we are going to be doing a bonus giveaway that I'm really excited about as well for one of the attendees on the webinar today. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. If it'll load here. Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. Isn't it fun?
They just keep coming.
Oh, man, I know. It's great. All right, we got it. So let's talk about what social media is anyway. So according to Google, social media is websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. Now, I'm all about Google, but I've got to be honest, guys. This is kind of the face that I made when I read that definition, like, really? Okay, that's super boring, and that doesn't really tell me anything as far as what it means for my business. So I wrote my own definition of what I think social media really is for businesses today. And so my definition is it's just the voice of your business and your customers expressed online, interacting together. So, I still talk with a lot of business owners who are really hesitant to embrace social media for their business. And they may say, gosh, my business is really boring and no one's going to want to follow me on Facebook, or, I don't want to get involved in social media because it's going to be like opening Pandora's box, and then all of a sudden there's going to be all these complaints and negative feedback that I'm going to have to deal with. And I just don't want to go down that road. So, guys, I have to tell you, people are going to be talking about your business online whether or not you're involved in that conversation. So the very best thing that you can do is get involved and just listen to what people are saying. And I think the amazing thing about what the Internet allows us to do is we have an unprecedented opportunity today that businesses just 10 years ago never had, to be able to engage with their customers 24/7, know exactly what they're thinking and what they're looking for. And businesses would have killed for that years ago before this was available. So you really need to get in there and be a part of that conversation. And even if you don't work in the most exciting industry in the world, I guarantee you that if there's a market for your product or service, which is why you're in business, people are online talking about it, and that presents a great opportunity for you to help them out and then eventually earn their business. Okay, so we've talked about social media and what it means for your business today. So now let's lay some ground rules and look at some of the fastest ways to fail at your social media strategy and campaign. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if you guys are starting to really ramp up and look for different ways to engage with your audience, that you don't fall into some of these traps that a lot of businesses will do to try to kind of ramp up quickly and get followers that they otherwise wouldn't have. So like baiting is just really incessantly asking people to like and share your content. Now, some of this is okay. You can, you know, occasionally say, share this if it, you know, if you think it's cool, or retweet such and such, but you don't want to get really, really annoying about it, right? So if you've got good content, people are naturally going to share and like and retweet it. So occasionally asking somebody to do that is okay, but you don't want to be obnoxious with your like baiting. Now, even worse than that is buying likes, and there are companies that you can go and buy a ton of likes for super cheap, and you may think, well, gosh, that's easy. You know, nobody's going to like my content otherwise because I'm a plumber, right? And who wants to follow that? But guys, that's not the case. Buying likes is not the way to do it. You know, it's going to look really fishy if all of a sudden you have 800 Facebook page from Indonesia. And then the other thing about that too is that if you have all fake fans and followers, nobody's going to be engaging with your content, which really defeats the purpose. So you will get fans and followers naturally over time if you do things the right way. So don't try to short circuit it and buy likes. Now, posting too much. You know, when we first start off a campaign, you may be really excited about your content, and it may get to the point where you're posting every day about what you ate for lunch and, you know, pictures of your dog and so on and so forth. And guys, a little of that is okay to humanize your content, but keep most of that reserved to your personal social media accounts. We'll talk in a little bit about figuring out who your audience is and what type of content they care about. But always ask yourself before you post something, is this going to either entertain, educate, or empower my audience? And if it fits one of those three criteria, then great, post it. And if not, save it for the personal accounts where it just doesn't really matter.
Hey,
next,
on that, I've got a question here from somebody on that, specifically around business-to-business communication and acceptable frequency. I mean, do you have any, you know, kind of rules of thumb on that? Because I know personally I've, you know, disconnected from people who are, you know, always blasting out something that, you know, seems irrelevant. So maybe some ground rules or thumb rules on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fast Company put together actually a guide for frequency across all social media platforms that I think is really, really helpful. And so if you search Fast Company's social media frequency guide, you can find that. But the basic ground rules that they laid were Twitter, they said that they're actually posting once an hour, which I think for a lot of small businesses may be a little bit much. On Twitter directly, it says 3 to 5 times a day would be appropriate. Facebook, they cited a study that showed that when you're posting more than once a day on Facebook, it's kind of just you reach the point of diminishing returns. LinkedIn, it recommended once a day as well. And then it didn't give guidelines for Pinterest or Instagram if you're using those as platforms. But you know, my general feeling on it is 1 to 2 times a day for those would be okay as well. And then YouTube, you know, if you have a YouTube strategy and you're posting content once a day would be all right on that as well. Does that help?
Awesome. Yep, I think that helps.
Perfect. Okay. So another thing kind of in the same vein of thought is what you're pushing with your social media content. And a lot of businesses fall into the trap of using social media as strictly advertising, which is not what it is. You know, there are other platforms for advertising. Your social media is to connect and engage with your audience and to help answer their questions and solve their problems and their pain points. So it's all about your audience, and it's really not about you. So I like to use the 80-20 rule as a rule of thumb. So you want 80% of the content that you're putting out there to be something that's going to be really, really helpful to your audience. And, you know, typically it's going to be related to your industry, but it's not going to be a push for your product or service or for your company. About 20% of the time, it's okay to post if you've got a new offering or if you've got a deal or a coupon. I mean, that stuff is all that's relevant, and of course you want to let your network know about that. But you want to keep that confined to about 20% of the content that you're putting out there. So use that as a rule of thumb when you're determining what you want to post with your social media. So the next trap that people will fall into is wanting to delete negative comments. And this kind of goes back to the whole Pandora's box thought from before, right? So you're going to feedback. I mean, it just happens. And again, it's going to be out there whether or not you're listening and engaged with it. And it can be tempting when you get a negative comment from, you know, it's always from some crazy customer, right? There's always two sides to every story, but every business owner I talk to has that one story about the guy who just kind of went nuts online and, you know, had a totally different point of view than the business owner about what happened. But the way that you respond to negative comments can actually really do a lot to build up your brand. And the beautiful thing about social media is that it allows you to be authentic and to show kind of the human side of your brand as well. And so everybody knows that things aren't going to be perfect 100% of the time in any business. And so when a prospective customer can see that somebody had a bad experience and they talked about it online, but then can see that you went in as a business owner and engaged with them, listened to what they said, validated it, and then offered a solution, and that you did all of that promptly and quickly, that'll make a prospective customer feel good about working with you, that even if they have an issue, they know that you're going to take care of them and help them out. And if you are that person who left that negative comment, depending on the way that a brand engages with you, you may turn into an advocate for that business just because of how impressed you were with their customer service. You know, I think with every consumer today, whether you're buying for a business or you're buying for yourself, you know, I think the general consensus is, gosh, customer service just really isn't good across the board. So that gives you, as a business owner posting on social media, the opportunity to really rise above everybody else and offer exceptional customer service, and it gives you a platform to do that as well. So if you have a negative comment, don't delete it, embrace it, respond back, turn that into a positive experience for the person who left the negative comment, and that's going to help build up your brand and make people trust you as well. And then the final thing here is just not having a strategy at all. And so I also work with a lot of business owners who they feel like they have to be everywhere, and they feel like they have to be pushing out content, so they kind of just jump in and start throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And they don't necessarily have a strategy or an end customer defined who they're designing this content for. So if you fall in that camp, you want to take a step back and really stop to think about, who is my customer, who is my end user, what's going to educate, entertain, or empower them, and make sure that that defines your strategy moving forward. So, okay, we've talked about what social media is. We've talked about some things not to do with your social media. Now let's dive into some quote-unquote boring businesses who are doing it right and who have really, really embraced their social media campaigns and who are connecting with their customers in a really great, unique, engaging way. So the first one that we're going to look at is H&R Block. So it's hard to find something that could be more boring than taxes, right? This is not a very interesting industry. But they did something really unique this past Valentine's Day. I don't know if any of you saw it. But they created the IRS, which is the Internal Romance Service form, for their clients and for their followers to help them figure out what gift they needed to buy for their Valentine for Valentine's Day. And the reason that this works and that this is kind of neat is, it's a spin on some jargon from their industry. So they're kind of making fun of themselves in a way which people appreciate because nobody really likes the IRS, right? Their target customer is probably male. He's probably kind of middle-aged, and so they know that for men, I would imagine the most daunting part of Valentine's Day is figuring out what to get for your Valentine, whether you're new in a relationship or whether you've been with somebody for 20 years. It's still hard to know how to please your woman, right? So they created this great...
I'll second that.
You'll second that, right? Probably every man on this call is thinking, yep, I needed that guide this year. So they created this guide that men were going to, think was funny and engaging and share. And so this one guide had almost 3,000 likes, over 3,000 likes on Facebook and over 5,000 total engagements. And so they took something that, like I said, it was a spiff on their industry, made content that was helpful for their audience, and they got a ton of engagement off of it. The next thing that we're going to look at is a campaign by Greenpeace, and I'm not going to play this video because video doesn't tend to play very well over GoToMeeting, but if you guys want to check it out, just go and search for the Greenpeace Grandma Clicks Dirty Click Clean campaign. And so they had Reggie Watts, who's a musician and comedian, sing this song about how Grandma clicks dirty. And the whole idea behind it is they're trying to advocate for large tech companies like Amazon to start using cleaner, more efficient forms of energy for their businesses. And they took something that is kind of a heavy issue and could be really dull as well, which is energy. And it could be contentious as well because there's a lot of debate around it, and it's kind of a call out for Amazon that they need to start using better forms of energy. But they added some levity to it by making it funny, and it's getting great engagement. People are liking it, they're sharing it, and so they did a good job of taking a social issue that is widely debated and making it a little bit light, but also calling attention to it. So that's a great campaign to check out if you want an idea of something funny to do via video. Maersk, this is a really interesting one to me. So Maersk is a Danish freight shipping company, and when you hear that you think, why are these guys even on social media, right? But they have done just a tremendous job across the board of building up a really, really strong social media following. So they are posting almost every day across 10 different social networks to their followers just to kind of show the inner workings of the freight company. And I think this shows that if you're in a commercial industry, I work with a large commercial air purification client, and they're always trying to think about, well, how do I make this interesting? It's all in the presentation. So they've got this Instagram account that they've built up. They have over 27,000 followers on Instagram now, where they take pictures of the boats and the ports that they're arriving at. They've even got a little one with a Lego man and kind of his point of view looking out from the shore to the boat pulling in. And so they've taken this and made it super artistic, and people are really, really engaging. On a side note, GE is doing the same thing if you look at their Instagram account. I mean, they take things that are very industrial and could be considered very dull and take beautiful photos of them, and people start engaging with that. The other thing that Maersk is doing that's really interesting is they actually built up an entirely different website just for their social media platforms called MaerskLineSocial.com. And so this is a little screenshot of it. They've got all of the icons for their social media platforms up here. And then they're actually pulling in a Twitter stream from their Twitter account. They're also streaming their employees' tweets. And then the thing that I love that they're doing is they're asking people on here, got a bright idea? So they're asking, what do you want to hear about? What can we talk about that will be interesting to you? And that is such a good thing to do anytime you're running a social media campaign, is talk with your audience, find out what they need, find out what interests them, and that's going to really help you ensure that your content strategy is on the right path. So great job to those guys of taking something that's really commercial and industrial and potentially very boring and getting tremendous engagement with it. The fourth company that we're going to look at is Moz, formerly known as SEO Moz. You guys may or may not be familiar with that name depending on how much digital marketing you follow and you do. So Moz is similar to my company in that they're a software company selling digital advertising solutions. And so this one really resonated with me. And I really like the fact that they're humanizing their company. It's boring, right? Nobody really cares about that. And I think it's tempting anytime you're selling software to just fall into a product pitch and just talk about all the bells and whistles of your product and to want to share that on your social media accounts, right? But they took a different approach and shared the human side of the business via Pinterest. And so they've got a couple of different boards that are neat to check out, one of which is Mozer's Then and Now, which you can see here. This one is Rand Fishkin, who's the owner of Moz. Here he is as a little boy. Here he is now. And then my personal favorite was Moz Dogs. I'm a huge animal lover, and so this is Baron, who's one of the employees' dogs dressed up as Spock in the office. And so it humanizes the brand. If I'm following Moz online, even if I don't have a need for their services now, if and when I do, I'm going to feel very comfortable with them and like I already know them, and also like they're probably going to do a good job offering customer service to me because I've seen the faces within the company. and I'm going to be more likely to buy from them when I have that need from them. So that's a good lesson, that you want to really humanize your content, even if you have a product that could be kind of cold and standoffish potentially. The final company, and this is my favorite, and I wish I could play this video for you guys right now, but search Blend Tech Will It Blend campaign on Google or on YouTube. And Blend Tech it's just what it sounds like. It's a blender company. And they have created some of the funniest YouTube videos showing just what kind of crazy stuff their blenders can blend. Now, you would think if you were selling a blender, you know, the thing you would default to is, okay, let's mix up some margaritas, or let's show some drink recipes or smoothie recipes. They are so outside of the box with what they're doing. So they are blending a crowbar, an iPad, my personal favorite, Justin Bieber memorabilia. So it's hilarious. I mean, one of these videos has gotten over 27 million views. So it's a lesson to don't take the obvious path when you're thinking about showing what your product can do. Think outside of the box. Think of something that's a little bit funny and different that people will want to share, and it will get tremendous engagement. So those are some examples of companies who are doing it right. Now, I feel like I should have a little Dr. Evil laugh for you here, but I'm terrible at voices, so I'm going to spare you guys that. But now that we've seen what not to do and then some examples of great things to do, let's talk about implementing your plan for your own social media domination. And so the most important thing that you need to do, if you have not done it yet, is go ahead and define your avatar for your business. Not that avatar, this avatar. So your avatar is your customer and who they are and what they look like. And this may be what your customer looks like. He may be a she, I don't know. There could be different demographic information. But when you know who you're talking to and who you're writing content to, that's going to help really guide your entire strategy. And so you want to get your avatar to the point where you actually have a physical description of what that person looks like, whether they tend to be male or female, what their age tends to be, what their profession likely is, what social media channels they're most likely to be using and engaging on, how much time they have to engage content. That's huge. I mean, for myself, I'm primarily communicating with CMOs, chief marketing officers, CEOs, or owners of businesses, so they don't have a lot of time. So I know that I have to keep my content short, snappy, actionable, and to the point. But you may be selling to moms who may be spending a lot of time on Pinterest or on Facebook throughout the day, where you have a little bit more leeway to take up their time with your content. So you need to really figure out who is your avatar. And I would recommend, get it to the point where you've got a drawing like this. Give them a name. Put a picture of your avatar and your customer up somewhere in your office so that when you're creating that content, you look at that and think, okay, is Bob going to think that this is funny? Or is this going to help Susan out with her day-to-day tasks as an office manager? And so really embrace that avatar and think about who that person is so that anytime you're designing your content, it is geared exactly for that particular customer and for your avatar. So there's 3 different steps that you're going to want to take that will help you further define your avatar, and they're broken down by TRE. Now, I have to give credit to Amy Porterfield and her podcast, and I'll share a little bit more with her about you guys shortly, for this 3-step plan, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's going to help you guys really dig in and figure out exactly who your avatar is. So the first part of the TRE plan is tactical. And so this is the part where you're going to be gathering data and information that's going to help you really figure out who is that person. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can start with a survey that you send out via email and social media channels, and you just want to ask people all of the relevant questions about themselves. So their demographic information, what do they do for a job? What are their likes? What are their interests? And now this is probably the most important part of that survey, is ask for 3 to 5 problems or issues that they're facing right now in their lives that are, of course, related to your industry. And so that's going to help you figure out what you need to start writing content about. Now, the easiest way probably to do this would be to think through ahead of time what are the issues that people are most likely to be facing, like lack of time, customer service, so on and so forth. It's going to be totally dependent on your industry as far as what those issues are. But I would ask people to list them and rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, just depending on how many you put out there. And then I would also give people a place to write in if there are any other issues that you haven't thought of that they're facing, just so that you get that feedback from people. And you'll be amazed at what people will tell you they're struggling and they're dealing with. So once you've gotten that information kind of from the field and you've gotten some anecdotal information just from what people are typing in, you're also going to want to do some market research to get some more quantifiable numbers and data. So I would look at what keywords are people typing in. That's really going to tell you what people need, what they're searching for that's related to your business and your industry. So a couple of good tools for keyword research are Keyword Spy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this the right way or not, but it's ispionage.com. So it's either espionage or ispionage.com. And then finally, SpyFu. And SpyFu is a tool that I use a lot. There's a free version and there's a paid version as well. And so that will allow you to go in and you can see trends. You can see keywords that your competitors are bidding on, which probably means that they're relevant to you and your industry as well. And so that's a great tool too. You can also go to Google and type in market research and then do a plus and type in the name of your industry. So market research automotive, market research internet marketing, so on and so forth. And that's going to pull back a lot of good market research and white papers and data that will tell you statistically, what people are searching for, what their problems are, what their demographics are in your industry. PewResearch.org is also a good resource for you to pull from for that market research. So I would check that out as well. And then additionally, take a look at what your competition is doing online. And this would be particularly helpful if you're a new business and maybe you don't have a really large established audience yet who you can pull from and ask questions of. But even if you are established, you're also going to want to go and just look at what the competition is doing. Now, like I said, SpyFu is a good tool. You can type in the URL of any business and see exactly what they're doing online. But if your competition, if you notice that they're repeatedly using Twitter or they've got a really robust Instagram account, so using either the same platform a lot or also talking about the same type of thing over and over again, it's pretty safe to assume that they're getting good traction off of that and that their audience, who is also your audience, is responding well to that content. So take some cues from what the competition is doing when you are formulating your tactical strategy. So once you've got that kind of figured out, then you want to go out and you want to start forming relationships with people. And these are going to be both online and offline. So as far as online relationships go, obviously if somebody's communicating with you on Facebook or on Twitter, you want to be fast to reciprocate. You want to communicate back with them quickly. And that gives you an amazing opportunity to ask people what they need and to offer help for their problems or issues that they're facing right then. And then if you're a local business and you have a local service area as well, get out there in the community. So get out from behind the computer, go to local networking events that are relevant to your industry. I would look for trade shows to visit if you can afford to go and either attend as an attendee or exhibit, depending on if it's worth the investment for you or not, just to meet people who are in your industry and meet your potential customers as well. Meetup.com has some great groups that you can go to that are very, very interest specific. And then again, look for other local networking events that would be relevant to your industry just to get out and meet people, because there's really nothing that replaces that face-to-face, belly-to-belly interaction where you're talking directly one-on-one with somebody. And the beautiful thing about that is that once you've built that offline relationship, you can take that online and continue that online and continue to grow it and nurture it. And somebody who's actually met you in person face-to-face is going to be much more likely to want to engage with your content. And it's also going to help you get a better feel for your audience and for who you're dealing with. And then the third and... Yeah, go ahead.
Can I interrupt you real quick? A couple of questions, but they're all kind of asking the same thing. Could you please repeat the name of the keyword website suggestions you had?
Yes, absolutely. So the first one is Keyword Spy.
It's KEYWORDSPY.com?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The second one is, and again, I apologize that I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's either espionage or ispionage. It's PIONAGE.com.
Okay.
And then
was that it?
The third one is SPYFU, which is SPYFU.
.com?
.com. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. I will text that out to everybody so they have it. All right,
Perfect.
thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Great question. And then, so the final piece of really getting to know your customer and to know your avatar, and this is going to help you really resonate with your avatar when you're writing that social media content to them, is to take all of the data that you've gathered, and now that you kind of know who your avatar is and what they look like and the problems that they're facing most importantly, Amy and her guests recommended just taking and sitting with that information for 20 to 30 minutes and really trying to feel what your customer is feeling. Are they feeling stressed out? Are they feeling bored? Are they feeling angry at the lack of customer service they're getting elsewhere? And once you can really embody and inhabit what your avatar is feeling, then that's going to help you connect with and bond with that person in no other way, so that when you are creating and crafting your content, it's going to really, like I said, really, really resonate with them, and they're going to feel like you're speaking directly to them and you understand and know exactly the problems that they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that TRE strategy is going to be something that I would highly recommend you do this week if you have not already stopped and thought about who you are writing all of your content for. And that's going to help guide your entire path and strategy for your social media marketing. So we've talked about what social media is. We've talked about what not to do. We've talked about businesses who are doing a great job. And now, finally, we're going to talk about a couple of different industries that I have done social media makeovers for that I think, like I said, could fall into the trap of being really dull, but I tried to think outside of the box of, okay, if I was running the social media for a business in this industry, what would I do that I think would be different and unique and engaging and also wouldn't potentially cost a lot of money? So I've got 3 different industries that I've chosen. Now, the first one is IT. I don't know what would make me think of IT in particular for this makeover, and I am sorry, Eric, but I had to do it. I couldn't restrain myself.
I think I remember that day. I just didn't know anybody was taking pictures.
You had, you had the cape on, you had the suit on, you probably had a full paparazzi following you there. You were just doing your thing, though. You were IT Superman, focused on saving the day. And so if I were running a social media campaign for an IT company, I would craft a campaign about IT Superman. And IT kind of resonates with me because it's similar to my industry in that it could be so darn dull, right? But you've got to have fun with it and maybe poke a little fun at it just to get people engaged and to start following you. And so IT Superman would be this theme that I would carry throughout all of my social channels. And I would create a YouTube video series where, you may show a scene in an office where the blue screen of death has popped up and people are just, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And IT Superman shows up on site with his cape and his suit, and he's there to save the day. And there are so many scenarios where IT Superman could, jump in and fight all of the IT battles in the world. And then I would take IT Superman and I would have him branded across all of my other social media channels. So he'd be on my Facebook, he'd be on my Twitter, my Pinterest, my Instagram, my Google+. I would have a landing page on my website specifically to connect with these social media channels all about IT Superman. I would have a blog where IT Superman talks about common IT issues that he sees his customer facing and how to fix them. You always want to give more information than people are expecting. So give more than you can ever expect to get back, and people will be so impressed with you that I promise you they will do business with you. But just give away as much information as you possibly can, and people will appreciate that. So people could go in and submit questions. He would also be offering up his advice and his experience and his expertise. And then the other thing that I think would be cool to do would be an IT Superman podcast. Now, podcasting is just such an amazing opportunity, but it's not something that I see a lot of businesses per se doing. I see a lot of individuals and kind of subject matter experts doing it, but it's an incredible opportunity to really establish yourself as an expert in a niche. And the other great thing about podcasting is the length of time that you have in front of your audience. So if you think about it, an average person who's going to be listening to a podcast is probably going to be either driving in the car or maybe at home cleaning or working out at the gym. And so assuming that you're interesting and that you're engaging with people, you've got somewhere between 30 to 60 minutes of their time to communicate with them, to give your message, to offer value, and to establish yourself as an industry expert in front of them. So IT Superman would have a podcast, and I think it would be fantastic. So the next industry that I did a makeover for was plumbing, and this is something that I had kind of mentioned as a teaser ahead of time about how in the world are you going to get somebody to follow you on Facebook if you're a plumber? But I think there are great ways that plumbers could leverage and take advantage of social media. So I would run a contest asking all of my fans and followers and network what their worst plumbing disaster was, and I think you would get some hilarious responses back to this. And then the winner of the contest might get a free year's plumbing contract, which I think would be great, or maybe they get a state-of-the-art toilet. I don't know if there are state-of-the-art toilets. I'm not a toilet expert, but I'm guessing there are, and so that might be kind of cool as a giveaway as well. I would also write an ebook, and this is super helpful, and if you think about it, any service business where you're inviting somebody into your home, there's a little bit of trepidation that the consumer may be feeling. And so especially if you're new to an area, or maybe you're a college grad and you just moved out and got your first place, you don't necessarily know what to look for when hiring a plumber. So I would write an ebook about 10 things to look for in a new plumber to give out to my audience, just as a huge value add. But I would take it one step further, and I would do this as in exchange for somebody signing up for my email list. And so I would have it on my website and across my social media as well. And in exchange for somebody giving me their email address, I would offer them this piece of what you would call premium content, which is going to be great content that people can't believe they're getting for free. And so there's actually an example of a plumber who has written an ebook that's very, very similar to this on a recent podcast that I listened to, and he's actually monetizing it and making money off of it. But if it were me, I would just give it away in exchange for somebody's information. And then the final thing that I would do is create a YouTube video series on how to fix common household plumbing issues. And so I actually had this experience myself last week where my kitchen sink was plugged up, and it was filling up, and it was nasty, and I didn't have anybody to help me fix it or figure it out. So I went online and I searched for how to unplug a kitchen sink, and I came across a video by a plumber who took me step by step through the entire process. And I actually ended up dismantling all of the plumbing in my sink. I was kind of proud that I was able to do I'm a little girly. I've never done it before, but it was only because I had this great step-by-step tutorial from this plumber that I didn't blow up my entire kitchen in trying to do this. And so this guy was not local, but if he was, I can guarantee you that he would get my business the next time I needed somebody to come on site on in my house and help me with that. So help your audience, think about what they're struggling with, and create content that's going to help them solve those problems. Now, the third and final industry that I chose was optometry. And I like this industry because I've worked quite a bit with optometrists and ophthalmologists in the past. And, medical is sometimes a little bit tricky. Obviously, you have to work around HIPAA and regulations in your industry. But something that I think would be really neat to engage with consumers would be an app or some type of software installed on your website where somebody can upload a picture of their face and try on different sunglasses and then different glasses frames that you may sell in your practice just to see what looks best on them. And I know for myself, I've gone in to try on glasses, and you kind of feel weird standing there staring at yourself forever in the mirror trying to figure out what looks best. So if I could try those on at home and see what looks best, I could take my time, feel really, really comfortable and confident when I'm going into the office that I've made the best choice as well. And then once I found what I liked on the website, I could click a link that would tell me, if you're multi-location, the closest location that has those glasses or those frames. Or if you're just one location, it would tell me whether they're in stock or not, or I could go ahead and order them as well. And then you could offer a coupon to the person for that particular set of frames. So I think that would be a really, really neat tool to use. And then I would also take it a little bit further, and this is something that I just think would be so cool to do. So I would create a campaign called What's Your Vision? And I would go out into the local market, and I would go to maybe underfunded schools and talk with kids there about what their vision is for their life. And they may kind of know what they want to do, or they may not have a vision and not realize that it's okay to have a vision for their life and for what they want to do. And then once we defined what their vision was, I would go out and I would help start connecting them with people in the local market who can help them with that. So helping them find mentors, helping them maybe shadow somebody in the industry that they want to get into, just to see that things are possible and maybe kind of take them outside of their normal environment to help them see that their vision is achievable. And I would brand all of my social media with this What's Your Vision campaign. So I would be taking videos on site when I'm talking to kids. I would show them, learning from their mentors. I would interview them about what their vision is. And then, of course, you've got amazing pictures and images to use on your Instagram, on your Pinterest account. I just think you could really, really go far with this, and I really like that it would involve community involvement and giving back, and it's something that's outside of the box that I don't really know that any optometrists or eye doctors are doing right now. I think it could be a really, really incredible campaign. So that's what I would do for an optometrist. So guys, we've covered all 5 of the areas that I wanted to talk with you about today. I want to share with you 3 key resources that are really, really helpful to me when I'm thinking about social media planning. And I would definitely recommend that you check out all of these if you're not already familiar with them. So the first resource is going to be the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn. Now, if you know me, you know that I love Pat Flynn. This guy is just super smart. And you may think, what does passive income have to do with social media? But he's interviewing everyday people who have built up incredible businesses for themselves online centered around passive income, but at the same time, they're all using different social media platforms and channels, and they're talking about what's working for them and what hasn't worked for them, so you can kind of learn from people's mistakes and just hear their on-the-ground stories about building their businesses using social media. So I get a ton of ideas from listening to him and from the people that he interviews. The second thing that I'm going to recommend that you absolutely have to read, if you have not, is Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. So a lot of you are probably familiar with Gary's name if you are, if you follow social media and if you're in the space. But he is just such an incredible influencer and thought leader. I mean, this guy took a wine blog and just has built it up to an incredible multi-million-dollar empire. And so Crush It is all about basically how to take any industry all the way down to fly fishing and to make it a huge success online via social media. So he just makes you really think outside of the box. And I would definitely read that book to start getting your wheels turning about different approaches than you might traditionally want to take to your social media campaigns. The third and final resource that I would recommend is the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast with Amy Porterfield. So Amy is who I was referencing earlier when we went through the TRE exercise. And I'm actually relatively new to her. I heard her name a couple of times on different podcasts that I listened to. And she is just so bright. She actually wrote one of the Facebook for Dummies books a while back. So she knows her stuff, but it's not just about Facebook. It's very, very straightforward online marketing advice. It's very, very topical. But I think she makes it easy to understand. And she just kind of boils everything down very, very simply. So I would definitely recommend that you start listening to her podcast as well to gain some great information about your social media and what you should do. So I mentioned to you guys that I would be doing a bonus, and so I'm so excited about this. So for all of the listeners who are on the call today, we're going to be selecting one of the listeners for me to do a social media makeover for free. So I'll follow up with you after the podcast once your name is selected, and we can set up a time to talk and kind of see what you're doing right now, what you may be struggling with, and come up with a great outside-of-the-box unique social media strategy that you can start implementing now to really, really engage with your audience and your fans and followers. So guys, thank you so much for your time today. This is my contact information. Please don't hesitate to email, call, text, whatever your preferred method of communication is. I would love to help you out with any questions that you're struggling with. And I hope that by the time I'm done today, and now that we're done and we've talked, you see that really no industry is too boring for social media if it's approached the right way. So Eric, with that, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Elyse. So first off, I've got a ton of questions that are kind of stacking up here. The first question is do we take bribes for winning the makeover? And I'm guessing the answer is no. Well, I guess it depends. It depends on how good it is.
Yeah.
So for me, and just so just takeaways from this, it sounds like I really came away with three things. Number one, make it about your customers, not you. Mm-hmm. Number two, help first / give first. And number three, give people a look inside your company, make it more human, right?
Absolutely.
Those are kind of the three things that kind of really stood out to me is kind of the meat of what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You got it exactly right.
So a couple of questions. One, let's see here. Let me see if I can. So the question is about what's the best social media to use. So, we've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You mentioned Pinterest and Instagram. What any rules of thumb as far as how to start, what to start on, that type of thing?
Mm-hmm. So if you're kind of starting from a blank slate, or maybe you're just kind of spread across different platforms, I would use the tactical part of the process of defining your avatar to figure out where your customers are spending the most of their time. Now, some of this is going to be a little bit intuitive. So if you're selling to moms, for instance, then you know that they're probably spending a lot of time on Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook as well. If you're B2B, you can more likely assume that your customers are spending time on Google+, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, of course, as well, and on YouTube. But I would ask your customers where they're spending the most time and get a feel for how much time they have as well. And then really, there's no hard and fast rule to it. I know that can be a little bit of a frustrating answer, but you have to test things out and monitor your engagement. And these platforms all have pretty good tools on the back end to figure out, okay, where is my content resonating the most with people and where am I getting the most engagement? So once you've got kind of a feel for the platforms that you want to test out, just start testing them and see, where do I get good responses? Where are people engaging and interacting and where are they not? And it's kind of kind of throw it out there, test it, monitor, and then maybe change your strategy depending on the reaction, the responses that you get. So I would survey them, see where they're spending their time, test it out, and then adjust your strategy if you need to.
Gotcha. So the next question is the changes in social media platforms, and I can certainly relate to this. I mean, seems like something new and cool, every other month, and then something else goes away. So the question's around what's the best way to get your content out to as many people as possible?
That's a great question. And, I think for a lot of the people who are on this call today, an example would be you may have noticed back earlier this year when all of a sudden your Facebook posts weren't getting the same type of engagement and interaction that they used to because Facebook updated their algorithm to give heavy preference to businesses who were paying for advertising there. So there were some businesses where Facebook was their primary means of communicating with their audience, and then all of a sudden they're getting maybe half or a third of the engagement that they used to get on their posts, and people just weren't seeing their posts, and it became incredibly frustrating for a lot of business owners. So you have to have a home for your content that people are going to get to no matter what, and that home has to be your blog on your website. And the way that I would think about social media is different roads to your house, right? So there are all these different pathways and roads that you could take to get to your home. You may have highways, you may have back roads, you may have scenic, pretty country roads, and you may find at one point that the traffic is really bad on a certain highway and it's taking you forever to get home. Or the view isn't quite as pretty on one of those scenic roads because they're starting to build, so you want to take a different route. So you've got all these different roads that lead to your home, and you're going to kind of choose between those, but then ultimately you want to make sure that all of your content has one place to live, which is your home, which is your blog. Now, the most important thing that you need to be doing to make sure that people get to your blog and to the home of your content is your email list. And we didn't really talk a whole ton about your email list today, but that is the one thing that cannot be taken away from you and cannot be changed. So that email list is gold, and nobody's going to, stop you from emailing people or change the frequency with which you're able to connect with your audience via email that you're going to have for people to get to your content. And that's something that you want to really, really value and take very, very good care of.
So, and just to reiterate that, you're talking about putting the core of your content on your own website and using the social media path to just direct people in.
Exactly, exactly.
Gotcha. All right, I understand. Let's see here. The next question is, it's a two-part question. So maybe some metrics around a reasonable amount of time and hours per week to be dedicated to getting a social media presence off the ground, and any hints you have about measuring return on investment.
Okay, perfect. So as far as time goes, it kind of just depends on who's managing it. So, a lot of businesses aren't going to have the funds to necessarily have a dedicated social media manager. I mean, if you can afford that and handle that within your business and your budget, then that's great. And obviously somebody's going to be spending all of their time on getting your social media campaign off the ground. But if it's something that you're managing on your own, which is probably the case for the person who is asking this, then the bottom line is something is better than nothing. At the minimum, I would start with 10 to 20 minutes a day if you can. I personally spend an hour a day in the mornings that I have carved out just for managing my social media platforms, but it's taken me a while to get there. But the most important piece with it is consistency. So figure out what's manageable for you and what's reasonable for you, and you want to make sure that you can devote that time every day, it's 10 minutes or whether it's an hour, to putting out content, doing the tactical part if you need to start with that, figuring out what your audience needs, and then building from there. The worst thing that you can do is kind of go gung-ho and put out a ton of content and then just fall off the map. So start with what's reasonable and then grow from there as well. And then as far as monitoring the metrics and a lot of people talk about return on investment with social media, and I think it's kind of a misnomer. I heard this phrase a while ago called return on relationship, and I think that's a better way to look at social path between you and a sale. It's building that relationship with your customers. So your metrics are going to be geared more towards engagement and growing your fans and follower base, rather than actually, making money that you can directly attribute back to a social media campaign. So I kind of think about it as, think about if you're going into a networking event. What do you expect to get out of it? You don't necessarily expect to leave with a sale, unless you're like a cheesy used car salesman and you want to go in and just push your products and wares. But again, that's not what this is about. You're going in hoping to build good, legitimate relationships, even if it's just one or two, and turn people into friends and ultimately advocates of your business. But you can set up custom goals for your social media. So maybe you want to double your email list within 12 months. And so then all of your tactics start focusing on, okay, how do I get more people to sign up for my newsletter, and what can I create as premium content that'll make people want to sign up? Or maybe your goal is to start building an Instagram following. So you start thinking about what types of photos of my business and of my industry would be interesting, and to build from there. So the metrics really are going to be geared more towards just growing your company and your network, rather than actually being able to assign a certain dollar amount to it. Does that help?
So you're saying, so you're saying put more key metrics around the social media components, like subscribers or retweets, whatever that is, and things like that you're pushing for versus actual sales.
Exactly. And the sales will come. It's just not going to be very easy to say this Facebook post generated X amount of money for my business.
Right. Gotcha. All right, cool. So that was all the questions. Elyse, you and I will get together and we will pick a winner and announce it here in the next day or so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you, everybody, for your time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Elyse. Everybody have a great day.
Bye-bye.